This is Warren Garden. I was brought to this garden during an event, Summer Session 2024, but I've never heard of it before. And it would house many unique plants, including peppers, mints, and lemons. It was a beautiful garden that I have not heard about after a year living in Warren, and yet it took a simple email to grab my attention. After the event was over, I heard no news or events about the garden no more. It wasn't until mid-February that I decided to dig up more information about the garden that I rarely hear about, including their contexts and activities that they still do. Upon doing so, I discovered that they have an official website, Warren Grows. The only form of social based on this website is a Discord server. Other than that, they're not quite well known online, but I did find their Instagram and Facebook, which are unfortunately not quite well known. This website would feature a communal aspect of the garden, including giving resources to those who are food insecure and providing free plant plots for UCSD students, which came to me as a surprise. This left me with more questions in regards to how environmental spaces such as the Warren Garden are left behind in terms of recognition. They will have to rely on using other platforms, specifically Instagram and Facebook, otherwise UCSD and Warren College would fail to bring awareness of the garden. Perhaps this has more to do with the individualistic nature of the campus that the garden resides in. But how could that make sense? Since in our campus we have our own news, physical and online. We even have our own magazine. How come then do we not often see news about environmental opportunities on campus? And how does this compare to news we see outside of campus? I grabbed one of the newspaper and read inside, but no mention of Warren Garden was in it. Not to mention, when I was looking at another magazine vendor, it was completely trashed. It's safe to say that most people would want to look at the news online. Online, you would also see UCSD advertising itself to be green. In fact, it claims to be one of the top 3 universities that is green. But living in campus, you would not really hear anything about the garden, or even anything environmental about the campus. The campus would often enforce individuality, having us focus more on our successes rather than what we're doing. You would see this behavior be enforced even outside of campus. There was a research conducted about how environmentalism was portrayed on the media, but according to the graph result, it seems that climate change is seen more as a villain rather than an effect that is caused by our own hands. These words would include change fight, action, crisis. Here, you would see climate change being seen as the boogeyman. The words action, fight, and crisis are meant to help us view climate change as something we can battle. But obviously, it's going to take more than just thinking about how to battle it. On the other hand, there's also a view that people will simply ignore this, not because they don't believe in climate change. There was another research conducted analyzing denialism from a Marxist ideology. Climate change denialism is not stemming exclusively from denying the whole concept of climate change altogether. Rather, it is denying the possibility of our own economy being the underlying cause. But at the same time, green policies that would help the environment could also hurt the economy. It would set limits to businesses from growing. That is not to say that this applies to all businesses, as it's a TikTok account that offers reusable scrunchies. It advertises itself to be less wasteful, so it is possible for businesses to still be green. As I was visiting the Warren Garden, one of the gardeners told me about how UCSD failed to promote the garden. UCSD advertises itself to be green, but does not do enough for the garden. Instead of the university providing funding for the garden, another person named Chris Johnson would help out. There's an article in 2022 that talks more about Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson is a sustainability landscaper. He would have worked in UCSD for 20 years. There was an interview made in 2023. He would criticize the UCSD Green New Deal. The article would also mention how UCSD has built a garden for the Kumeyaay people, but it no longer exists. It was destroyed for the construction of the 7th college, which brings back to how UCSD advertises itself versus how it really is. But how does this compare to news outside of the campus? How does the world advertise itself versus how it really is?
I am a videographer, as some may say, a photographer. I also am a technical director and editor for CBS News.
I conducted an interview with one of my friends. News would have to be spontaneous and entirely performed live, meaning that there's little room for errors.
It can be a lot of pressure. And then when it comes to editing as well, A lot of us editors have to try and edit to the script that's written.
He claims that CBS would talk about environmentalism, such that they would talk about climate change, pollution, and conversational effects.
And sometimes I do ask questions on how particular things should be edited so it's portrayed correctly by what's written and what's given to me, and how it should be portrayed on the big screen. In general, I believe they try their best.
He claims to feel good about reducing pollution. Conserving resources is necessary. He claims advocating for policies and actions that reduce pollution. He also knows about the other side of the situation, going back to how green policies can also hurt the economy. However, the environment seems to be a bigger priority.
I know it also, from my understanding, I know it also involves advocating for like policies and actions that reduce pollution, conserve resources, and promote sustainability, which is stuff that I love. Reducing pollution, I think that's really great. I love conserving resources and whatnot.
He would not talk about this in public because he fears that his views would conflict with his own community, which is actually one of the reasons why he's remained anonymous. If there's anything I learned from this project, it's never enough to advertise yourself as being green. Sometimes we just have to take actions into our own hands. But it's not enough for one person to do it. We as students at UCSD should not just listen to what's on the news. Listen to whatever you see or whatever you're watching right now. Instead, we should really think about what we will do, what we should do. I've had a wonderful experience at War Garden, and it would be a shame if that were to disappear as well. We have the ability to shape our future, but it is up to us to decide whether that future starts now.